If the Keystone Cops had an evidence gathering team, Charlie Gallagher would be its captain. Hi, Tony DeWitt here. I'm a Missouri appellate attorney, retired, and I bring you a fresh perspective on the law without offering any legal advice. So pull up a chair. This is what we're discussing today. A number of witnesses testified yesterday in the Karen Reed trial, and I want to address the testimony of just one of them, Charles Gallagher. He was finishing his testimony from the day before with Honking Hank going at him for all kinds of different things, and then it came time for cross examination, and any good that he may have done on direct was thereafter destroyed by Alan Jackson. It was actually a pretty awesome kind of thing to watch. The first thing they asked him about was evidence handling. He was questioned about the handling of Reed's black SUV, which was kept at the Canton Police Department Sallyport from January 29th to February 1st. He confirmed that essentially all uniformed officers and ATF agent Brian Higgins had keycard access to the Sallyport during this time. He admitted the vehicle was not photographed upon arrival, stating documentation's decisions were left to the state police once the investigation transferred. He was also questioned about the handling of blood samples in unsealed red Solo cups in an unsealed Stop and Shop bag, which were placed near the SUV for photography. He acknowledged that proper sealing protocols for evidence weren't followed and that biological material is hypersensitive and subject to cross contamination. While he stated he brought the bag to the Sallyport with a criminalist, he had no personal knowledge of who handled the cups or bags before he took them from the temporary evidence refrigerator on February 1st. He was criticized for witness and occupant interviews and a search. He was questioned about entering the house at 34 Fairview Road with Sergeant Lank on the 29th. He stated he did not need the search beyond observing the immediate area near the front door, family room, and kitchen. He didn't seek consent for a search warrant. And of course, everybody knows that the only place you ever assault somebody and batter them is in the front room, never like in the basement or somewhere else in the house. So certainly just going in looking would have been fine, I'm guessing. It's amazing what passes for intellect in some of these officers, I have to say. But he didn't seek a consent for a search warrant, and, well, here's his rationale.
While you were spitballing, you also didn't secure the camera footage that we've talked about, the Arlo footage.
Yes, that's correct.
You also didn't formally search the house, correct?
Absolutely correct.
We just talked about that. You didn't seek consent by Brian, by Brian Albert to search the house, correct?
That's correct.
You also didn't seek a search warrant. You talked about that, correct?
Correct.
You don't get punished or in trouble if you seek a search warrant and a judge who has to sign the search warrant. Normal citizens can't do that. It requires a judge's signature. You don't get in trouble or get spanked or get slapped or get fined if you seek a search warrant that is denied, correct?
In this particular situation, I would need to articulate facts, certain circumstances, and witness statements. What I had was nobody could put John O'Keefe in the house, including Miss Reed, and that we had a glass where they were coming from a bar, and I had 3 separate police officers, including myself, that had been in that house on 3 separate occasions and saw nothing amiss. I have a good faith obligation to present the truth to a judge. And if I don't, I can be found, end up on a Brady list or a Giglio list, as you know. And my credibility to testify in my career is basically over. So yes, you can get in trouble.
You're talking about lying in an affidavit, sir.
I'm talking about misleading.
Correct.
I would have to twist circumstances to have the right to search Brian Albert's house. We had no reason, and there's been no reason since.
How about this? There's a dead guy on the lawn that looked like he potentially could have been in a physical altercation. How about that? Might that be of some concern to go inside the house and see if there was a struggle that started in the house?
There's still no evidence to go into the house.
You have a guy that's out on the lawn with no coat on. You think the coat might be inside the house? That might be a reasonable assumption? Yes or no?
No.
You got a guy outside with no shoe on. You think the shoe might be inside the house? That
I-
might be a reasonable assumption.
I never saw Mr. O'Keefe. I wasn't aware that he
Because you
didn't have
didn't
his
seek
shoes.
to find out the details. Other people knew every single fact that I just suggested at the time you walked in the house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
The fact is you didn't seek a search warrant.
I wouldn't. Correct.
The fact is you never searched the house.
That's correct.
The fact is you never searched the basement.
That's correct.
The fact is you never searched the garage.
That's correct.
His justification for failing to go in there and execute a search on the house was that he couldn't have gotten a search warrant because he would have had to disclose that nobody could tie John O'Keefe inside the house. But here's the thing. There's a dead guy on the front lawn. His face and his head are what have been battered. There is no trauma below the neck other than some scratches on an arm. There is nothing that would lead anybody to believe that somebody had been hit by a car. He's laying on the lawn of a police officer with whom he had some kind of working relationship, and the guy never comes out of his house during all of the activity on his lawn. That, among other things, leads me to believe that he was getting some special treatment here from his friend, the lieutenant. Even though he certainly denied that there was any possibility that he was showing favoritism, it's hard to listen to his explanation for why he couldn't get a search warrant when he could easily have gone into the judge and said, we got all of these problems, we've got this dead guy on the lawn, there's all kinds of different witnesses, we haven't had time to do anything else, but we have to secure the crime scene. It is absolutely doctrine that police officers have to secure the crime scene, and the crime scene is not just where the body lies, it's where the crime could have been committed. And that would include the street and the house. And so the failure to do that, the failure to secure the crime scene, first of all, the failure to search the crime scene thoroughly, either by consent, which he didn't try to do, or by search warrant, which he didn't try to get, is a huge oversight. And one might suspect that there is some reason for that, particularly in view of Trooper Proctor's text where he says, no, he's not going to get in trouble. He's a Boston cop. That's the kind of thing that, if I were on the jury, would mean I wouldn't spend a whole lot of time deliberating this with my fellow jurors. I would simply say, this gal is innocent and there's something wrong in all of this picture. Gallagher then testified that he was spitballing with Jackson, and Jackson had some fun with that metaphor. Let's watch that.
Spitballing, to use your word, correct?
Correct.
Trying to figure out what happened.
Correct.
That's the job of an investigator, correct?
That is correct. Yes,
You
sir.
don't just take witnesses' words for things, do you?
That is correct.
You have to corroborate things.
Yes.
You have to look deeper,
Yes.
ask more questions,
Absolutely.
actually investigate.
That's why we're here today.
You don't rule out anything or anyone
We
right
didn't-
off the bat, correct?
Correct. and we
No
did not.
one is ruled out. Nothing is ruled out,
That is
correct?
correct. Yes.
You follow where the evidence leads you, period, amen.
Absolutely.
You didn't seek to separate the occupants at 34 Fairview, correct?
No,
You didn't interview Brian Albert formally, did you?
I did not. No.
You were asked by Mr. Brennan, did he ever end the conversation precipitously? Did he end it early or anything like that? He didn't end any interview because he wasn't interviewed, correct?
That is correct.
You didn't interview Brian Higgins.
That is correct.
You wouldn't interview Brian Higgins because he's your personal friend, correct?
Correct.
But you didn't have anybody else interview him either, did you?
Again, we're talking, I think we've gone over this and maybe you didn't understand it. I didn't know Brian Higgins was at the house at that time.
Because you didn't ask anybody else who was at the house at that time.
I wasn't talking to anybody at that house, correct?
Might have been a good idea, wouldn't it?
Not at that time. We were there for one specific reason. We wanted to get to the hospital. So no.
Might have been a
I
good
disagree.
idea to sit Mr. Albert down and say, there, you're shaking your head again. I'm not done with my question. Might have been a good idea, Mr. Gallagher, since you happened to be there, no sweat off your brow, to sit Mr. Albert down and say, by the way, I got a pen and a paper. Who was here last night, just before John O'Keefe was found dead on your lawn? Who was here? Might have been a good idea, correct?
So that was already done by Detective Sergeant Lang, and it was documented in his report of everybody of what Mr. Jackson is asking.
Then how did you two not know that Brian Higgins was there?
I don't know where.
Did you see the look on his face?
Then how did you two not know that Brian Higgins was there?
I don't know where.
What? How did I know? Oh, whoops, what did I say? I better think about this. Let me a little bit. It doesn't matter what he said. It was pretty clear. It was actually abundantly clear that Jackson had nailed him on that question. And there was no wiggling around after that. Jackson clearly got him. One of the critical things that the defense needs to do is they need to be able to explain how those light pieces, the pieces off the tail light, wound up at 34 Fairview. Because the defense theory is that they were cracked, but they weren't broken, that somehow they were broken at the Canton Police Department. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's certainly their working theory. And so one of the key concepts here is who had access to that vehicle after it was taken to the Canton Police Department.
You're aware that Mr. Higgins not only had an office at Canton PD, he also had a key card for Canton PD.
Yes, he did.
Explain for the jurors what a key card or an access card at Canton PD means. What is that? What is a key card for Canton PD?
So it's a secure building. I think we've all seen it. You have the square boxes with the red light. The key card allows you access into the building. And depending upon your rank, you have different rights. Each individual has different rights to enter different areas.
You had, for instance, being a top-level Canton lieutenant, you had a key card that was probably the functional equivalent of a master key card. You could get in pretty much any place you wanted.
Absolutely not.
Okay, where could you go?
It's easier if I say where I can't go.
That probably is easier.
Would that be work?
Explain that.
So I can't go to the armory, which is where weapons are kept and ammunition is kept, and I can't go into permanent evidence.
Okay. You're aware that Brian Higgins had a key card.
Yes, I am.
And that access card gave him access to pretty much, with the exception of the armory, possibly the evidence room, and what was the other location?
I think that's what I said, the evidence room and the armory.
With the exception of those, you're aware that Brian Higgins' key card gave him access basically to the entirety of the Canton Police Department?
Well, so I want to specify, I don't specifically know what Brian Higgins had rights to, but there are also parts of our department that are secured by key locks that he wouldn't have access to, and I don't have access to as well, offices and things of that nature.
I want to focus your attention on the Sally Port, if I could. You can enter the Sally Port, which is a fancy name for a garage, correct?
It certainly is, yes.
Okay. You can enter that from the outside, meaning out in the elements. You come from a parking lot adjacent to or that services the Sally Port. You can enter from there, correct?
Yes, there's one pedestrian door on the main entrance side, and it's for location purposes. It's right beside the garage door that's marked number 4.
And the garage door is one of those big roll-up, industrial-style roll-up doors that comes up and down?
That is correct.
And then you can also enter the Sally Port from inside Canton PD, correct?
There are 2 locations you can enter the Sally Port from inside, yes.
And Brian Higgins' key card gave him access to both of those locations. The pedestrian portal going into the Sally Port from outside, as well as the pedestrian portal from inside Canton PD.
That would be correct.
Okay.
In this part of the cross-examination, we understand now that the entire Canton Police Department had access to that vehicle, and any one or more of them could have bashed in the taillight and taken it out. So in short, here's a review of Gallagher's guilty goof-ups. The lack of evidence collection and observation at the scene, the failure to search the house or get a warrant, the failure to separate and formally interview occupants of the house as well as attendants of the party, the failure to secure the Sally Port and document the evidence of the vehicle's condition, the failure to interview Brian Higgins or have someone else interview him, the failure to secure the video evidence from across the street at 34 Fairview, the failure, among other things, to take care of the evidence that was the biological evidence. I didn't get it on the list there, but that's pretty serious too, in my view. The long and short of it is that this investigation was never seriously undertaken because they were afraid, as they initiated the investigation, that it might lead back to Brian Albert. Again, this is my opinion. This is not fact. This is my opinion, but that's what I think. I think they were afraid that it would lead back to Brian Albert or to somebody else who was at Brian Albert's house, and as a result, they didn't pursue it, and they botched it. And they thought they could probably force Karen Reed to take a plea deal if they offered her a decent plea deal, which of course they didn't, because they felt like they had her over a barrel. And I don't think they did. They certainly didn't count on Alan Jackson bringing all this out.
Who the hell are you? The guy you didn't count on.
That's what I have for you today. I hope you found it helpful, interesting, or maybe both. If there's a subject you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to send me an email at the address above. If you like what we do, please feel free to subscribe and come on back to the beach tomorrow. I release videos every weekday, weather and work permitting. If you have the opportunity today, do a kindness for your fellow man. It makes the world a better place, one kind act at a time. And now, YouTube has some suggestions for other videos of mine that you might like.